A secret CEO found his waitress counting pennies for food. What happened next shocked all when worlds collide. Steam rising from the industrial dishwasher felt foreign against Jake Morrison's face, for a man who usually commanded boardrooms. From the 47th floor, the heat and chaos of a restaurant kitchen was like stepping into another universe. He adjusted the name tag that read Ben and tried to blend into the background, watching every detail with the sharp eyes of someone who owned 37 restaurants but had forgotten what it felt like to work in one. 3 weeks ago. Customer. Complaints had started flooding in about Rosewood Grill, one of his flagship locations. Poor service, cold food, rude staff. As CEO of Morrison Hospitality Group, Jake could have simply fired the manager and moved on. Instead, something his grandmother Grace had once told him echoed in his mind. You can't fix what you don't understand, and you can't understand what you've never lived. So here he was, washing dishes at minimum wage. Hair dyed darker, beard grown out, expensive watch replaced with a cheap digital one. Nobody questioned Ben, the new dishwasher. Nobody cared where he came from. In the corporate world, Jake Morrison was untouchable. Here, he was invisible. That changed the moment he saw her. Emma Torres moved through the dining room like water, finding its way around stones. She carried herself with quiet grace, never rushed, but never slow, treating every customer with genuine warmth, even when they treated her like furniture. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and her brown eyes held a kindness that seemed to glow even under the harsh restaurant lighting. Jake first noticed her during the dinner rush on his second night. The kitchen was behind on orders. Customers were getting impatient, and the manager Tom Bradley was barking at everyone within earshot. But Emma never broke. She apologized to frustrated customers with sincerity, brought free appetizers to tables that had been waiting too long, and somehow managed to keep smiling even when a man at table 12 threw his napkin down and demanded to see the manager. Sorry about that, she said to the couple at the next table, who had witnessed the outburst. Let me bring you some fresh bread while you wait. Her voice was soft but steady, like someone who had learned to stay calm in storms. From his position at the dish pit, Jake watched her handle situation after situation with a professionalism that impressed him. This wasn't the poor service he'd heard about in the complaints. This was someone who genuinely cared about doing her job well. It was near closing time on his 5th night, when Jake saw something that stopped him cold. Most of the staff had already left, and he was finishing up the last load of dishes when he heard the soft clink of coins. He peered around the corner and saw Emma sitting alone at the staff table in the break room. Spread out in front of her were piles of coins and crumpled dollar bills. Quarters, dimes, nickels, even pennies, all carefully sorted into neat stacks. She was counting them with the focused attention of someone for whom every cent mattered. Her lips moved silently as she added and re-added the amounts, her finger tracing along each pile. Jake's chest tightened as he watched her pull out a worn smartphone and open what looked like a calculator app. She entered numbers, paused, entered more numbers, then sat back with a sigh that seemed to carry the weight of the world from where he stood. He could see her total on the phone screen. $23.47. Emma reached into her purse and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Even from a distance, Jake could see it was covered in careful handwriting. She studied it for a long moment, then began dividing her money into smaller piles. Some coins went into a small envelope marked medicine, others into one labeled bus fare. The largest pile, maybe $12, she slipped into her apron pocket. Jake realized he was holding his breath. He'd never seen someone budget with such precision, such desperate care. In his world, $23 was less than what he spent on coffee each morning. Here it was being divided like treasure. Emma stood up, gathered the remaining coins into her purse, and walked toward the small employee refrigerator. She opened it and stared inside for a long moment at the mostly empty shelves, closed it without taking anything, and headed toward the exit. Jake made a decision that would change everything. He quickly finished loading the dishwasher and caught up with her in the parking lot. Emma, he called out, using her real name for the first time. She turned, surprised. Oh, hi, Ben. I thought everyone had left. Almost done. Hey, I was wondering. Jake hesitated, not sure how to approach this without seeming invasive. Would you like to grab some food? I know a place that's still open. Emma's expression became guarded. That's really nice, but I should get home. My treat, Jake added quickly. I just got my first paycheck, and I thought it might be nice to celebrate with someone. Something flickered across her face, a moment of internal debate. Jake could see she was hungry, could see the exhaustion in her shoulders, but also the pride that made accepting help difficult. I don't really know you, she said softly. You're right, Jake replied. Yeah, but I've been watching you work, and you're the kindest person in that place. You helped me figure out the dish rotation on my first day when everyone else ignored me. You brought Tom coffee when he was having that terrible day with the broken freezer. You even shared your granola bar with Linda when she forgot her lunch. Emma looked surprised that he'd noticed these small acts. Sometimes, Jake continued, kind people deserve someone to be kind back to them. After a long pause, Emma nodded. Okay, but somewhere cheap. They ended up at an all-night diner called Stella's, a place with cracked vinyl booths and coffee that had been sitting too long. Jake had eaten in Michelin-starred restaurants around the world, but watching Emma's face light up when she ordered a simple cheeseburger and fries made this feel like the most important meal he'd ever shared. So what's your story, Ben? Emma asked, taking a tentative bite of her burger. You don't seem like someone who plans to wash dishes forever. Jake had prepared for this question, but something about her direct gaze made him want to tell the truth. Instead, he stuck to his cover story. Was trying to figure things out. Had some setbacks, needed to start over. Emma nodded knowingly. I understand that feeling. What about you? You seem like you'd be good at other things besides waitressing. Emma's smile became wistful. I went to culinary school, had big dreams about opening my own restaurant someday. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. Turns out dreams don't pay the bills. What happened? Life happened. My grandmother got sick, needed expensive treatments. I had to drop out to take care of her and work. The medical bills ate up everything I'd saved. She took another bite, chewing thoughtfully, but I don't regret it. She raised me after my parents died. She taught me that cooking isn't just about food, it's about love. Jake felt something crack open in his chest. Here was someone who had sacrificed her dreams for family, who worked double shifts just to afford medicine for someone she loved. She was talking about it like it was the most natural thing in the world. Do you still cook? He asked. Sometimes, when I can afford the ingredients. Emma's eyes brightened slightly. I make this incredible chicken soup that my grandmother loves. She says it tastes like magic. I'd love to try it sometime. Emma looked at him carefully, as if trying to decide whether he was serious. Maybe you will. They talked until nearly 3 a.m. Jake learned that Emma had been valedictorian of her high school, that she spoke 3 languages, that she'd won a scholarship to culinary school before life derailed her plans. He learned that she walked 40 minutes to work each day to save bus fare, that she hadn't bought new clothes in 2 years. And that, despite everything, she still believed in the power of small kindnesses to change the world. When Jake finally drove her home in his deliberately modest rental car, he watched her disappear into a rundown apartment complex and felt something he hadn't experienced in years. The urgent need to protect someone other than himself. But as he drove back to his penthouse across town, Jake realized he was facing an impossible situation. He was falling for a woman who knew him as Ben the dishwasher, not Jake Morrison, the CEO. A woman who had been betrayed by people with power and money before. A woman who valued honesty above everything else. He was living a lie that grew bigger every day. And he had no idea how to tell the truth without losing her forever. The next morning, Jake sat in his real office, staring out at the city skyline. And thinking about Emma counting pennies in the break room, he picked up his phone 3 times to call her, then put it down each time. How do you tell someone you've fallen in love with that everything they know about you is a carefully constructed fiction? How do you explain that you watched them struggle, while you had the power to change their life with a single phone call? Jake Morrison had built an empire on making hard decisions quickly and confidently. But for the first time in his life, he had no idea what to do next. All he knew was that tomorrow night, he'd put on his name tag that said Ben and return to washing dishes. Just for the chance to see Emma smile at another customer and remember what it felt like to believe in goodness. The secret he was keeping felt heavier each day, but the alternative, losing her, felt impossible to bear. Hearts and revelations. 2 weeks had passed since that night at Stella's diner, and Jake found himself living a double life that was slowly tearing him apart. By day, he sat in board meetings discussing quarterly profits and expansion plans. By night, he scrubbed pots in the kitchen of Rosewood Grill, stealing glances at Emma as she gracefully navigated the chaos of dinner service. The hardest part wasn't the physical work or maintaining his cover story. It was watching Emma struggle while he had the power to change everything with a snap of his fingers. He saw her carefully rationing her lunch breaks, often skipping meals. Entirely, he noticed how she discreetly accepted leftover food from the kitchen staff, packaging it carefully to take home. Most painfully, he overheard her on the phone during breaks, speaking in rapid Spanish to someone he assumed was her grandmother, her voice strained with worry about medical appointments they couldn't afford. Jake had never felt so powerless in his life, and it was entirely self-imposed. Their friendship had grown naturally. Emma had started bringing him coffee during his breaks, claiming she'd made too much. Jake, who normally drank single-origin beans flown in from Colombia, found himself looking forward to her slightly bitter break-room coffee more than any vintage wine he'd ever tasted. "You're different from the other guys here," Emma said one night as they cleaned up together after closing. Dining room was empty except for them, chairs stacked on tables, floors mopped to a dull shine. "Different how?" Jake asked, though he was terrified of the answer. "You listen. Really listen. Most guys hear what they want to hear, but you pay attention to the things I don't say." Emma wiped down the last table, her movements precise and practiced. "It's like you see people, not just what they can do for you." Jake's heart hammered against his ribs. If only she knew how much he wasn't telling her, how much he was hiding behind carefully crafted responses and half-truths. That night changed when the kitchen's walk-in cooler broke down. Tom Bradley was in full panic mode, calling repair companies and cursing at quotes that wouldn't solve the problem until morning. Meanwhile, hundreds of dollars worth of fresh ingredients were slowly spoiling. "We'll have to throw everything away," Tom muttered, running his hands through his thinning hair. "Insurance might cover some of it, but this is going to kill our numbers this month." Emma stood in the doorway of the cooler, looking at the towers of vegetables, meats, and dairy products that would soon be garbage. What if we cooked it all? Tonight, Tom looked at her like she'd suggested they sprout wings and fly. "Cook it all, Emma? It's almost midnight. The kitchen staff is gone." "I could do it," she said quietly. "I mean, not everything, but the perishables. Turn them into soups, stews, things that keep. We could serve them as specials tomorrow." "You're a waitress," Tom said, not unkindly but dismissively. Jake stepped forward before he could stop himself. "She's trained. I've seen her work." The words came out with more authority than a dishwasher should have. He caught himself quickly. "I mean, she knows her way around a kitchen." Emma looked at him gratefully, then back at Tom. "Please, just let me try. If I mess up, I'll pay for the ingredients myself." Tom considered this, calculating the cost of lost inventory against the unlikely possibility that a waitress could actually pull this off. Finally, he nodded. "You have until 6 a.m.? But if this goes wrong, ... It won't," Emma said with quiet confidence. What happened next was like watching magic unfold. Emma tied her hair back, rolled up her sleeves, and transformed into someone Jake had never seen before. She moved through the kitchen with the precision of a surgeon and the passion of an artist. Her hands flew as she chopped vegetables. Her knife worked so fast and clean it left even Jake impressed. She started with a base of aromatics, onions, celery, and carrots, sautéed until they filled the kitchen with warmth. Then came the proteins, each one treated with respect and skill. Chicken stock simmered on one burner while she built a complex vegetable soup on another. Her movements were economical but graceful, every action purposeful. Jake found himself washing dishes faster than necessary just to stay in the kitchen and watch her work. This wasn't someone who had simply attended culinary school. This was someone who understood food at a cellular level, who could coax flavors from ingredients that seemed ordinary in anyone else's hands. "Can you hand me that time?" Emma asked, not looking up from the pot she was stirring. Jake reached for the herbs, their fingers brushing as he passed them to her. The contact sent electricity through his entire body, and he saw her pause, just for a moment, as if she'd felt it too. "You have good instincts in a kitchen," she said softly, adding the herbs to her creation. "Most people get in the way, but you anticipate what I need." Jake wanted to tell her that he'd spent years in kitchens, that he'd worked alongside some of the world's best chefs, that his palate had been trained by masters. Instead, he said, "I'm just following your lead." By 4 a.m., Emma had created 7 different soups and stews, each one more incredible than the last. The kitchen smelled like heaven, rich and complex and comforting. Jake had tasted each one as she worked, offering suggestions that she accepted with surprising trust. "This is incredible," he said, sampling a butternut squash soup that somehow tasted like autumn and childhood and everything good in the world. "Where did you learn to do this?" Emma's smile became wistful. "My grandmother. She came here from Mexico with nothing but recipes in her head and love in her heart. She taught me that cooking isn't about following rules, it's about understanding ingredients and respecting them." "Is she still cooking?" Emma's expression clouded. "She's arthritis now. Some days her hands shake too much to hold a knife. That's why, ... double quotes she trailed off, but Jake understood. That's why Emma was here, working for tips and wages instead of following her culinary dreams. As the sun began to rise, Tom Bradley arrived to find the kitchen spotless and 7 massive pots of the most credible-smelling food he'd ever encountered. He tasted each one, his eyes widening with each spoonful. "Emma, this is ... double quotes." He paused, searching for words. "Better than restaurant quality. Better than restaurant quality." Emma blushed, suddenly self-conscious. "It's just soup." "No," Tom said firmly, "this is not just soup. This is going to save our month." He was right. The next day, word spread about the surprise specials at Rosewood Grill. Food bloggers showed up. Local newspaper critics called for reservations. Every pot Emma had made sold out before 2 p.m. Customers were asking when they could try more of the Magic Cook's creations. Jake watched it all unfold with a mixture of pride and growing guilt. Emma deserved recognition for her talent, deserved opportunities that would let her shine. But as Ben the dishwasher, there was nothing he could do to help her without revealing his true identity. That evening, as they worked side by side cleaning up after the busiest day the restaurant had seen in months, Emma turned to him with tears. In her eyes, "Ben, I don't know how to thank you." "Thank me? You did all the work? You believed in me when no one else would? You stood up for me with Tom?" She touched his arm gently. "I haven't had someone believe in me in a long time." Jake felt like his heart was being squeezed in a vice. Here was this incredible woman, grateful for the smallest kindness, while he sat on the power to change her entire life and couldn't figure out how to use it without destroying the trust between them. "Emma," he started, then stopped. How could? He explained that he was falling in love with her. How could he tell her that every night he went home to a penthouse apartment while she counted pennies for bus fare? How could he admit that he was exactly the kind of person she'd learned not to trust? Someone with money and power who was keeping secrets? "What is it?" she asked, studying his face with those perceptive brown eyes. I think you're amazing, and I hope someday the world sees what I see." Emma smiled, the kind of smile that started small and grew until it transformed her entire face. "Thank you, Ben. That means more than you know." As they stood there in the empty restaurant, Jake Morrison realized he was facing the most important decision of his life. He could continue this charade, living as Ben and falling deeper in love with a woman who would hate him if she knew the truth. Or he could risk everything by revealing who he really was and hope that what they'd built together was strong enough to survive the deception. Looking into Emma's trusting eyes, Jake knew that either choice might break both their hearts. But staying silent was no longer an option. Tomorrow, he would have to decide whether love was worth the risk of losing everything he'd found in the most unexpected place of all.